G'day guys, in today's video we're going to talk about pigeon racing to a small loft with a small team of birds. I've been keeping pigeons for the last 29 years. I've been racing pigeons on and off for the last 19 years, and in that time it's always been a small team of birds to a small loft, normally under 50 birds. One year I did have around 80. That was my first year of racing. Now, you don't need a lot of birds to race. We'll get into that video in part 2. This video, I'll just share with you some of my pigeon lofts that I've had over the years and the lofts that I got now and how I've modified them, and give you a bit of an insight to how they look. Alright, it's sunny outside. The last few years I've been racing only to that little loft and only to this half of this loft. Very small teams of birds. Cockbirds and breeders, hens and spare birds, and occasionally I breed too. Have a look inside. As you can see, this loft is nothing fancy. It's made out of Q-block aluminium for the frame, some light gauge plywood for the ceiling to stop condensation, and it's lined. But as a small pigeon loft, you can have this as a racing loft or just a general little loft. It is good for just a few birds. I've also got some squeakers here. Once upon a time I used these breeding boxes, now they're just used for storage. Also made out of the Q-block aluminium. Ventilation up the top for airflow, and we have ventilation down there. The birds come through these bob wires here, and to let the birds out, drop that, open that flap, and birds can get out. This is a small little loft. Currently there is no birds in this loft, but this is a little loft I was racing to. Actually a nice perfect size little loft for anyone who wants a small team of birds. 18 to 20 birds, perfect for racing a small team in a small yard. As you can see, this loft is a loft by itself. The only thing I had to do differently is the overhang here. Normally I would have made it bigger, but because of this door here, I had to cut this overhang short. To let the birds out or let the birds in, I open this. I've also got a secondary trap here. Normally I would open this door, and once again, we have this bob wire system, and normally that would be like that, but that's broken. And I can have open this up and have the birds just sitting there and they drink from the inside. Prime example of a nice little loft. Really good for if you've got a small yard. Once again, some ventilation up the top, very important. This is the second racing section when I was racing. Let's have a look at some of the birds. Ventilation up the top once again. Ventilation down the bottom. Now the design of this section, I just race natural and I got the standard square perches. Although you can see This is 300 long deep, and you can have proper pigeon holes if you want for extra motivation. The birds come in through the bob wires, and I can also stop birds getting in if I want to. Once again, to let them out, we just open the door there, and they should fly out. Come on guys, come on bludgers, out. There you go. That is how I let them out. Oh, I think there's a hawk around actually. Yeah, there's definitely a hawk around. And then I close this back up. So this is another little loft, little section. You could have something of this size on its own to raise to. 25 birds, perfect. A small team. This is where I keep the stock birds, or the couple cock birds that I have, and the breeders when I'm breeding them. It's another little section. Once again, the ventilation up the top for airflow, ventilation on the bottom. Normally I like to only have 4 to 6 breeding pairs. That's all you need when you have a small loft, because otherwise you've got too many birds. And you got to give them away or sell them for other people to breed. I was telling you about how I isolate. Oh. So these birds, once again, if I want birds to come in this loft, if you want to isolate them, that's what you do. And same thing, I have the opening closing mechanism. But right now these birds aren't going out. Squeaky's in the nest. Check out that colouring, like an opal. But this is all you need for pigeons. And we've got a little vent there. This loft here is made out of box tubing. This 25 by 25 gauge. It is also all been flat packed. So all these panels, this whole loft bolts together, and you can add more on. Once again, we have the roof is lined, stop condensation, and underneath that condensation, before we hit the tin, we got this installation as well as an extra. There you go, you can actually see it there. Really helps keep the loft nice and cool. And when I want the birds locked in here, or when I'm training the squeakers, I put them in here. I've got this closed, and they look out through here, and they get homed in. And when I feed them, they've got to learn to go through that first trap. Oh. They'll learn to go through them bob wires there, and that's how you get used to them. I mean, that's how they get used to things. Birds just chilling on the shed. Can be a pain in the arse on race day, because they like to land on the roof first before the loft. But on a good day, the birds will land directly on the landing board. Alright, I left that open as I'm filming, and 2 birds snuck in. Whoa, whoa, whoa. He's in heaven right now, him and his hen. They've paired themselves up, and they think they got a loft to themselves. I'll let him be for now. Also, for the rainy days, I had to make this clear blind because of this overhang. So what I do, when I know that small but simple, this is what I started with, and it evolved a little bit over time, as you can see, but I still try to keep it a small and simple operation. Little loft, 2.7 long. This loft that I'm standing in front of was my original racing pigeon loft when I was living with my parents. It was just a garden shed, or multiple garden sheds with wire fronts. I flew some successful birds to this little loft. This is where I had the most birds, when I was racing 80 birds.